What's up, everybody? So, no, first and foremost, the title is not clickbait.
Yes.
Before we get into this, we want to tell you up front, there is a good amount of knowledge and resources out there that could possibly be backing this up.
Yeah, in fact, that's exactly why we're jumping on.
Right.
We're jumping on right now, do a special episode. As we've told you guys many times, we will do when something important is happening in the world of comics or movies, television, what have you. And we've got a bunch of stuff that we put together now that we felt it was important enough and a big enough deal. In fact, in my opinion, I just said to you before we came on, that I think this is one of the most interesting things that's going on in comics in a very, very long time.
Well, yeah, because if this proves to be true, two years from now, that's insane. I mean, Marvel Comics merging with DC Comics, becoming pretty much one entity.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. And
that's
there's
crazy.
definitely enough smoke now for us to be very, very interested and to think that there might be fire here.
For sure. So let's lay out the groundwork of what's been actually going on in the actual comic books, in Marvel and DC, that's kind of, not cementing, but like, this probably could be a thing, hence us, being here talking to you about it. Okay.
And to be fair, even before we go into that, we also want to say this didn't start with us reading the comics.
No.
This actually started with some conversations that we had with some sources of our own behind the scenes that we can't really get into because they're off-the-record conversations that made us very curious about what was going on at DC.
Well, I think just the comic books solidified that. And I know for me personally, maybe like link things together and even come to you and be like, wait, so maybe that's why this person said this to us and now this is happening.
Right.
All right. So let's start with Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
We did an episode on Doomsday Clock. If you haven't read Doomsday Clock or watched that episode, you can watch that. We'll put the link for that in the description and the little title card above our heads. But Doomsday Clock, the finale. Obviously, there's going to be spoilers for all of this. So the finale of Doomsday Clock, all the timelines get fixed, basically. Dr. Manhattan realizes that basically Superman inspires him, Dr. Manhattan, to fix things in the universe and set everything right in his own universe and in the DC universe. The short of it is, when he does that, he starts predicting the future. He starts going on and predicting, like, this is going to happen in 2020. This is going to happen in 2025. And in 2030, I believe, in July 10th of 2030, there's a panel that says, I'm going to read it to you verbatim. It says, on July 10th of 2030, the secret crisis begins, throwing Superman into a brawl across the universe with Thor himself, and a green behemoth stronger than even Doomsday, who dies protecting Superman from these invaders. So that in a DC book, one of, Doomsday Clock, which was, it took 2 years to come out, but that was a massive book for DC. That was easily their biggest book of last year, as far as events go, universe-wide. And Geoff Johns and DC is saying they're predicting a crossover with Marvel and DC in the future. It says 2030, but, who's to say that those dates are exactly? He's kind of just being vague, saying, hey, something like this could happen. And he said, Superman fighting Thor. That's important.
That's a very important part.
That is very important for the next bit.
But also, not just Thor, citing the green behemoth.
Which is the Hulk.
Yes. Because I also think that there's a crossover reference on the other side in the Thor title as well.
Yes.
So, but we'll get to that.
Okay. So that's Doomsday Clock issue 12. Then Donnie Cates has a brand new Thor title. Donnie Cates is on fire right now. He's easily one of the hottest writers in all of comic books right now.
Without question.
So right now he has a brand new Thor title. It's been great. At the end of the first issue, he made Thor, the New Herald of Galactus.
Right.
And then, so we were all very excited for issue 2. So I'm reading issue 2, and the second page in, we start seeing references and imagery of Superman. Like, I'm talking about, you see the Metropolis building in the second page of Thor issue 2 with a green and blue streak flying, Superman flying overhead, and then we get captions and dialogue saying, in this universe we have a sun god, a god of emerald light, a god of dark perhaps. It goes on to say, a god of the ocean, of speed, of strength.
Yeah.
All those are easily, a sun god, Superman, a speed, the Flash, Emerald Light, Green Lantern, a god of dark, Batman, god of the ocean, Aquaman, so on and so forth. Like, he is full on giving imagery and referencing, these Justice League characters.
Yeah.
In a Thor book.
It even says here at the bottom, I believe, or is it the next? No, it's the very next panel down where it says, this universe, like so many before it, is protected by leagues of God.
Yes.
Of gods. Leagues of Gods.
Very interesting.
So it is without any question, and you can see the colors that they're using. Even when it comes to the orange streak, the lightning, it's that orange yellow, that
Straight
pattern,
out of the Flash.
straight out of the Flash. It's without question it is referencing DC heroes: Superman, Green Lantern, Flash, Aquaman, and that last one of Strength. You were saying maybe it's Wonder Woman, but because of the crossover and the mention of the Green Behemoth in the Doomsday title and the Doomsday finale,
right?
I'm wondering if that's also referencing the Hulk.
Could be.
And that's where they're also tying together.
Very, very curious. Because the crazy thing about this issue is you only get this reference on the second and third page, if memory serves me correctly, and then the rest of issue 2 and even the entirety of issue 3 does not touch on this.
Right.
So this is very much just in there, almost out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like it serves a purpose to the story
because it's referencing. It basically is saying this winter that's coming.
Yeah, the Black Winter.
The Black Winter that's coming. There is no one that will save you or can stop it.
Correct.
And so it's presenting that, which is right in line with what the Thor title is doing and where the story is headed. It's the insertion of the direct reference of the DC characters that is not just shocking,
very shocking,
but
to say the least.
Yeah, but it is clearly quite deliberate, and I cannot see any way that is some sort of unplanned, uncoordinated coincidence.
Well, the crazy thing is, like I said, remember Superman fighting Thor in the Doomsday Clock reference? We get this in a Thor title.
Right.
And not just any Thor title, a Donnie Case Thor title. Which is like becoming easily one of their most popular books for Marvel right now.
Immediately following the release of the conclusion of Doomsday, which took 2 years to come out.
Yes.
So this could have happened any other time. This happened literally 1 month following the release of the conclusion, us finally getting the conclusion of the Doomsday Clock story.
So we're saying all this because obviously there seems to be some truth to this whole crossover with Marvel and DC.
There's something building.
Obviously, DC Comics is mentioning it in Doomsday Clock. You have Marvel now touching on it in their Thor title. So that's like, okay, so this is this is your way of teasing us fans. So a year or 2 years from now, maybe even come San Diego Comic-Con, who knows, they're gonna drop a bomb on us. But what's crazier than that is we've talked about the 5G initiative for DC here before.
Right.
And we now know after Doomsday Clock that DC for Free Comic Book Day is going to be releasing a free comic book called Generation Zero.
Right.
Which basically is going to be setting everything up for their new initiative. It's basically their new version of the New 52, the new version of Rebirth. Basically they're changing all of their continuity again, where Jonathan Kent, I guess, is going to be Superman, Lucius Fox is going to be Batman, so on and so forth. And there's been several websites and several artists and people who work on the industry. Again, there's some people we can't name we talked to behind the scenes, but Ethan Van Sciver, a longtime comic book artist for DC Comics. He did Flash Rebirth, Sinestro Core Wars, bunch Green Lantern Rebirth. One of the most legendary artists for DC Comics. He has a YouTube channel. He made a video basically saying he knows a lot of editorial and stuff there and people who still work for DC. That this is Warner Brothers and DC's last-ditch effort to kind of get their sales and continuity back up.
Right.
So, and he's saying if this 5G initiative or Generation 5, I guess is what the rumor of the new name is. I guess they want to stay away from 5G because the whole 5G internet, stuff like that. They just changed it to Generation 5. Again, that's a working title. It's not confirmed.
Right.
If this doesn't pan out, DC publishing could possibly end. We've talked about this before on the podcast. Could possibly end, and what would happen is people are theorizing Warner Entertainment, DC Entertainment, would license out their characters at that point.
Right.
So
now, what we speculated in the past when we previously talked about the 5G initiative and what this could mean for the future of not only DC Comics but comics in general was that they would just stop hard copy publishing.
Correct.
And it would just all go digital. But now...
Or they would just reduce it to one Wednesday a month and not every week.
Very basic and very limited number of books. But now the rumors that are coming out, it goes a step even beyond that.
For sure. So,
eliminating publishing entirely if things do not improve.
Correct. So
and again, that's just rumor.
This is rumor.
We don't know any of this is fact. This is rumor, and this is speculation based on all of the things that we're seeing.
Correct. But as we always say, where there's smoke, there's usually fire.
Yeah, and there's a lot of smoke starting to go.
Right. So if this, Generation 5 doesn't pan out, if it's not accepted, sales aren't, on par as what AT&T and Time Warner want, that could be the end of DC publishing as we now know it. And then again, they can license their characters out to other publishers. Now, this is where we started theorizing. Again, this is still a rumor. Now, this is fact. We didn't really even see anything on this. This is kind of us just working it out in our heads.
This is us taking all of the puzzle pieces,
right,
and we're starting to try to put them together.
Now, we know clearly that both Marvel and DC is hinting some kind of crossover, merger type
crossover
thing.
Event.
Right, because it's in Thor, like we just talked about, Doomsday Clock finale. Now, what if Bob Iger, Disney, license the DC characters, and now Marvel and Disney are the ones publishing Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash. Could you imagine? And this is the first step to that. This crossover is the first step to test the waters, see how sales do, because you're going to get everyone, and they're like, oh, okay, we're Disney. We'll give you a few $1 billion to publish these characters month to month.
Mm-hmm.
Mind blown. I don't even know what to say. That would be insane.
For starters, and previously what we speculated when we had the conversation about 5G before, the speculation and my thoughts on that, just, having spent a lot of time in the corporate world myself over the years, and knowing the way that these corporations operate and the way they think, and the bottom line is the biggest aspect to everything, and what, their stockholders, et cetera. That's what led us to the, they're definitely gearing up to make some kind of a major change, but it was, this would all just go digital.
Yeah.
Right. But if it goes even beyond that to where that's real, and AT&T is saying, we just don't even want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. This is not something that we want to be I would have to believe that also the performances of the films are also playing into that.
That's another part in the rumor. They're saying that DC has a backlog of, 50 plus years of stories to pull from, that they don't necessarily need new comic book stories coming out. That, they can make movies for another 100 years, and then, they're making money off their video games, off their movies, off their toys. So they don't necessarily need the publishing side, as sad as it is.
I'm just wondering does AT&T want to, does Time Warner, AT&T and Time Warner, do they just want to license these out and hold on to the rights and just try and make money off it? Or if Bob Iger comes to the table and says, we'll give you $25 billion for the entire smash. Because here's what I know. Disney is not going to want to share rights with someone else. They're not going to want to take, do a crossover like for a limited event of some kind. Mm-hmm. But for Disney to want to take that on in any real capacity, they're going to want exclusive rights for the publishing. You know what I mean? And so my thought process would be, if I'm Bob Iger and he's getting ready to retire here in the next couple of years, if an opportunity starts to present itself, he could say, I could literally be setting up this company and solidifying my legacy, as if he needed that, solidify my legacy for all time. Because if Disney was able to acquire DC Entertainment and bring that under the umbrella of Disney and appoint a Kevin Feige, maybe even have Kevin Feige mentor someone,
that would be a juggernaut of insane proportions. I mean, Disney's already a juggernaut. I know personally, I know that's what you think. Personally, I don't see Warner selling off the characters completely, giving up their movie rights or the video game rights, even for something like $25 billion, just because that is such a big catalog and moneymaker for them.
It really is.
I don't even know if $25 billion would be worth it.
It really is. The only reason I'm even speculating it, and it is just that, it is pure, some of it might be even wishful thinking, but it's pure speculation. But part of it is being driven by the idea of, if there's that big of a mess going on over there, and when I said part of this might be driven by what's happening with the performance of their movies, I'm talking about the ones that have already been released, that they haven't been happy with the performance of the films. Mm-hmm. And Joker did well recently, but then you had immediately, that was followed up by the release of Birds of Prey, which has underperformed for them. And we've talked at length about, you know, them not really seeming to know where they're going with all of the different
DCEU
characters in the DCEU. So, you know, it really does come down to, does AT&T see enough value and have enough confidence in those properties to at Warner Brothers? Because remember, Warner Brothers is not, they're owned by AT&T.
Correct. Yeah.
So the AT&T,
this all really started happening with that merger.
Exactly right.
You know, we talked about again in the past about how this 2019 at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, they usually have a front center booth, 2 floors. They were kind of in the corner pushed in the back in 2019, which was the beginning of the what's happening. I mean, you're talking, given San Diego Comic-Con is a big pop culture event now, but it's still called Comic-Con. So Marvel and DC, being the big behemoths in the industry, are always front and center. Yet DC was pushed a little bit to the side, and that was the first like inkling of like, what is happening?
Yeah.
This is weird. I mean, Batman, Superman, you got at a Comic-Con, you got to have front row.
That is for sure. That is for sure. So for me, it boils down to, it's all speculation, but there is clearly something, one, very serious going on over at DC, in the halls and offices of DC Entertainment, and secondly, they're clearly coordinating something with Marvel.
For sure.
It just begs the question, is it just a single event, or are they lining up something much bigger if, you know, X, Y, or Z does not line up for Marvel to take for there to be a transition?
I'm not sure,
of some
but
sort.
I'd say, you know, we definitely need to stay on this, like follow all this stuff, because if you're big comic fans like us, you need to be looking for all this stuff, because again, this isn't stuff that was even announced. And oddly enough, I don't see that many people even talking about this Thor issue 2. We're already on Thor issue 3. There hasn't been that many people kind of just like, oh, it's a fun little nod. But I'm like, no, you got to start putting the pieces together and see, you know, everything that's going on with the business side of things. And then, you know, Geoff Johns just resetting stuff in Doomsday Clock, only for DC seeming to unravel that yet again, or go forward with it, but in a different direction than seems was intended.
Right.
So, and then you have the stuff with Scott Snyder's Justice League, which doesn't seem to be lining up perfectly. They're us comic fans are used to them just kind of doing things to make it fit, but you can tell that that wasn't the original idea.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious as a fan, first and foremost, I'm always a fan. I'm a little worried because I love DC Comics. Batman is what got me into comic books. So
there was already concern just after what we were hearing about 5G.
Right.
So this makes it even. I mean, there's some aspects of it that are exciting, and then there's some elements of it that are very nerve-wracking. And again, some of the stuff that we are basing our opinions on and our thoughts on are conversations and information that we know that we really can't share right now.
For sure.
So
it's off the record.
Yeah, it's off the record. We can't really get into it. As soon as we can, we will. But right now, we can't really share it openly, but there is even more feeding this speculation than what we can actually openly talk about. So it's definitely something we'll stay on top of, and as soon as we can talk more about it, we definitely will.
For sure, like Tim said, just to solidify, as soon as we get more news, we'll definitely come back and do a normal episode or something like this, and keep you guys up to date. But what do you guys think of this, of Marvel and DC possibly merging, either just for another crossover or potentially permanently? That's I don't even know, man. I'm like speechless.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
And I also want to add, too, before we go, the Donnie Cates Thor run, we're 3 issues in, is fantastic so far. So if you're not reading that, you definitely want to be reading that, because even aside from this Justice League reference at the beginning of issue 2, just through issue 3, it's excellent so far. So definitely highly recommend that, because we also don't know what else this is going to tell us about this situation.
You definitely need to be, I would say, follow anything Donnie Cates does. He's been kind of a game changer and universal wide within the Marvel universe, and now it seems like he's kind of, I don't know, they gave him a little reins to DC. That's our speculation.
We'll see what happens.
Definitely read it. And issue 3 has a cool fight with Beta Ray Bill.
It does.
But let us know what you guys think in the comments. And we'll see you guys next time when we talk about all things comics.